Hello to everyone. Well, it's great to see you. So, yeah. When I was going in high school in Italy, I very often thought, oh my God, this is so boring. I sat down for 13 years in silence, being told about ancient and abstract notions that I would never use in my life. So today, I want to talk about what's going on right now and how it's going to affect our lives. As you probably know, we are in the middle of a huge planetary environmental crisis. The science is telling us that if we keep on going with the same way of doing things, or even something similar, within the next century, our food systems will collapse, our global economy will collapse, and most likely, most human beings on the planet and most species on the planet will not survive the next century. The worst impacts of the climate crisis will be felt by young people and by people in the global south. For us, this means that a lot of our dreams and aspirations may never be realized. And it's a hard thing to say, but everyone we love may die. And that's just the truth. We are the generation of the crisis. And we're really coming to understand what's really at stake for us. It is a matter of life or death. The truth is that our futures are being taken away from us so that wealthy adults today can consume more than is physically possible. And that's why it's really important for young people, for us, to reclaim our voice and our power in the system right now, before it's too late. The causes of this environmental breakdown are not isolated but systemic. It is our whole economic system and way of life that is pushing the environment to the brink, and us with it. So if we are to survive this crisis, we don't just need to tinker around the edges. We really need to transform, to change our political and economic system, that is neoliberalism. From what the data says, it will not be enough to just reduce pollution. We really need to rethink what we mean with growth, markets, individualism, and the whole purpose of the economy. And it's also what we're doing in XR Youth and XR more generally. It's not only about the environment. So the same power structures which cause the destruction of the environment are also oppressing the majority of people across the world. So the exploitation of the planet, of the working class, of the poor, of indigenous peoples, of women, and of the global south are all caused by the same mechanisms and structures of power. These are the disproportionate and excessive concentration of power inside networks that are dominated by essentially old, white, rich corporate men who, through these networks and through controlling the flow of finance and information across the world, are able to project their interests over the interests of all these other groups. Through their funding of knowledge, education, and media, they have been able to persuade the public that what is good for multinational corporations is always good for everyone else. This is the key message behind neoliberalism, although they don't phrase it this way. And let me be very clear. This is a lie. You've been told a lie, as the state of the environment testifies right now. I encourage you to be quite cautious about the information that you're receiving, because a lot of the information that we are exposed to in society, from the media, ads, even education, is actually a form of propaganda for this system, for this destructive system, as was the case for any society in history. This is just what structures of power do. They educate people to comply with the structure of power. So in order to challenge this structure, as I said, we need not just some technical fix, but a whole paradigm shift. We need to change the way we see the world. And that's really why young people are essential to this. We cannot solve a problem with the same ways of thinking that created the problem in the first place. And we cannot change the system with the same mindset that produced this system. We need to create new paradigms and new visions of the world. And us young people are still able to envision this world beyond the current one, because we haven't been fully conditioned and shaped by the current system yet. The minds of a lot of older people have been so influenced, so conditioned by the system, that they are not even able to imagine something beyond it. They just say, well, that's just the way the world is. And they stick with it, because they've already gotten used to it. When we point out these issues and criticize the system and seek to change, we are often told to grow up, to be realistic and pragmatic, as if destroying life on Earth was the mature and pragmatic thing to do. We are often told that we need to follow these rules that we never signed up for. We are told that we need to conform to a society that we had no voice in shaping. This is not our society, this is their society. And it's going pretty bad. We are told that we have to conform to a system that actually oppresses most people on this planet and will lead to the destruction on Earth. So the corporations want us to become compliant workers and consumers. They want us to absorb these dominant values of neoliberalism without questioning them, and internalize them to then regulate our own behavior according to these power structures. They want us to get a proper corporate career instead of following our passion, and then to spend our whole life, time, energy, and health working like crazy to increase their profits, regardless of what we want to do with our lives. They want us to spend all our time producing and consuming so that they can keep selling, consuming things that we actually don't need, which is actually distracting us from the things that really matter in life and that can make us happy, and is destroying the planet. They want us to get a suit, get a bank account, get a mortgage, get a car, get a big TV, get a house in the suburbs, get insurance, get a pension, to then just be swept away by the coming floods. Well, for me, this is not a life worth living. I think we are here to create, to transform, to discover, to form communities, to love, to push the boundaries. We can make our own path. And so to break free of climate change and survive this century, we need to challenge these structures of power, and we need to challenge these social structures into which we are inserted for our conditioning to turn us into good workers and consumers. And to challenge these structures, we need to connect with the people who have been outside this system and who have been already resisting against this system, sometimes for centuries. I'm talking about indigenous peoples, I'm talking about landless farmers, workers movements, I'm talking about women of color, migrant communities, refugees, and other communities of resistance, as we call them in XR Solidarity. These people are at the front lines of the battle for the survival of their ecosystems and their communities. They are murdered every day by those who want to take their lands and ecosystems away from them and pollute them for purposes of economic development, as we call it. Don't take my word for it, Google it. These people, a lot of these communities, are already feeling the worst impacts of climate change that we will feel in the future. They are suffering from extreme natural disasters, food systems breakdown, and environmental intoxication that are already killing millions of people every year in the global south. And all of this is happening so that the global market and the global economy can continue to function as it is. It's a painful truth to share, but the consumer products we are buying here are often stained with the blood of these people. Us young people here share a lot of affinity with these groups in the global south in terms of struggle and interest. We both absolutely need to avoid the environmental breakdown. We will both suffer the worst excesses of climate change, although it is worse for them. And we both have interest in overcoming this system before it is too late for everyone. Our liberation depends on their liberation. Let me explain better. If the global north is to survive and avoid this climate catastrophe, we need the healthy ecosystems in the world to remain alive, and we need more of them. And many of these ecosystems are in these countries that our global economy led by us is exploiting and degrading. So for the global north to survive, we need the neo-colonial grabbing of the resources and ecosystems of the global south to stop. That's the only way. So most of the remaining healthy ecosystems are held by indigenous people. If they lose their lands to companies, and the companies pollute and degrade these ecosystems, the climate will break down and our future will be gone. So their struggle is very much our struggle. So learning about medieval poets and abstract theories will not prepare us to face the climate breakdown, the environmental catastrophe. What we really need to learn about more is how our global economy is exploiting people and environments across the globe and how to stop that. But especially, we need to learn about these communities of resistance around the world. We need to learn how they cope with climate change, because we need to do it as well. We need to learn how they live in harmony with their environments and protect them, because we are unable to do it. They are. And we need to learn how they are resisting the constant encroachment of companies and governments on their lands, who are seeking to burn their forests and pollute the rivers so as to increase GDP and create economic development and produce more consumer goods. So here we are. I believe that there is still hope. I believe that the most beautiful pages of history are yet to be written. And we are not doing this struggle just against the system. We are fighting for a better world. We have tried countering the narratives of elites and their arguments on their own terrain, and it just, even though we disproved many of the things they said, it just did not take us far enough to transform society. What we need now is to tell a new story, is to weave a new narrative for the people and the planet. And that's why you and me, young people, are fundamental.